What if Jesus met John F. Kennedy? The Oval Office late at night is a tomb of power. The world's anxieties whisper from the teletype machine, a constant stream of coded fears. On the walls, maps are not geography. They are battle plans, a chess game played with nations. John F. Kennedy stands by the window, a silhouette against the Washington darkness. The public smile is gone, replaced by the crushing weight of a world teetering on a nuclear precipice. He is the visionary, the leader of the new frontier, but in this silent hour he is just a man burdened with the godlike authority to end everything. The iconic red phone on his desk glows faintly, a constant reminder of how close hell is. And then, he is there. Not through the door, not announced by guards. Jesus of Nazareth simply occupies the center of the room, a point of stillness in a universe of frantic energy. His presence is not an intrusion, it is a reordering of reality. The chatter of the teletype fades to nothing. The strategic maps on the wall suddenly look small, like children's drawings of a temporary world. The ominous red of the phone loses its menace, becoming just a piece of colored plastic. Kennedy turns, his mind trained for threats and opportunities, but he finds neither. He sees only a carpenter whose silence is more profound than any state secret or political decree. In this man's heart beats the drum of a powerful idea, a creed that built his Camelot. He believes in the torch of progress, passed between generations of men. He has looked a nation in the eye and challenged it with a noble call. Ask not what your country can do for you, but what you can do for your country. It is a beautiful, compelling vision of a kingdom built on human sacrifice and national will. Yet, the silent figure before him offers no applause. Jesus' very existence is a quiet, devastating question. He stands as the embodiment of another kingdom, one not built by hands, making the grandest of human ambitions feel suddenly incomplete. The president, a master of words and debate, finds himself utterly disarmed. What argument can be made against a silence so full of truth? His entire life's work, the defense of the free world, the race to the moon, the promise of a secular salvation, is held up to a different light. It isn't judged as wrong, but as insufficient. The foundation of his power, the belief in man as the ultimate author of his own destiny, cracks under the weight of a presence that is its own authority. The burden on his shoulders feels heavier than ever, because for the first time he senses it might be a burden he was never meant to carry alone. If this encounter already makes you think, then subscribe now to this channel, because here, the power of heaven confronts the thrones of earth. In the president's soul, a cathedral of conviction stands tall, built on the bedrock of human potential. He is a high priest of progress, and his gospel is one of civic duty. He has proclaimed it from the steps of the Capitol, a call for a generation to pour its lifeblood into the chalice of the state. He believes with every fiber of his being that the highest virtue is sacrifice for the nation, that the path to a better world is paved by the works of great men. This vision of a shining city on a hill, a modern Camelot, is his truth. It is a powerful and seductive faith, one that can launch rockets to the moon and inspire millions. His second doctrine is the immortality of ideas. He has stated that while men die and nations crumble, a powerful idea lives on forever. This is his answer to mortality, his blueprint for a legacy that outlasts the grave. He seeks to build a kingdom of thought, a frontier of the mind that will stand as a monument to his generation's will. It is a noble pursuit, an attempt to grasp eternity through influence and historical memory. But in the silent gaze of the Nazarene, this conviction feels hollow. An idea is not a resurrection. A legacy is not a soul saved. The man before him is not an idea. He is a living, breathing truth that death could not hold. Jesus offers no counter-argument, no political thesis. His very presence is the rebuttal. He is the quiet embodiment of a kingdom not of this world. If his kingdom were of this world, his servants would be fighting, maneuvering, strategizing in the great game of nations. But they are not. His power is not in the threat of a red phone, but in the surrender of a willing heart. Kennedy's world is defined by borders, armies, and ideologies locked in a struggle for dominance. The carpenter's reality is one where such things are temporary illusions, stage props in a drama whose final act has already been written. The president fights for a frontier. The Christ is the frontier. The visionary leader is the master architect of his new frontier, a structure of hope and ambition built with human hands. He has drawn the plans, rallied the workers, and laid the foundation with his own charisma. Yet the silent visitor is a constant, unnerving reminder that unless the Lord builds the house, the builders labor in vain. The grandest cathedral to human achievement, if built on the sand of mortal pride, is destined to fall. The silence in the Oval Office is not empty. It is the sound of a faulty foundation cracking under the weight of an eternal, unshakable reality. Every policy, every speech, every sleepless night feels like rearranging furniture in a house that was never truly his. This is the invisible clash of kingdoms. One is built on the strength of man, the other is built on the weakness of a man on a cross. One demands what you can do for your country, the other asks what you will allow God to do for you. Kennedy feels the crushing weight of a world on his shoulders, a burden he chose to carry. The figure before him offers not a crown of power, but a yoke that is easy, and a burden that is light. The invitation is not to do more, but to surrender. And now the question hangs in the air for him and for you. If you could stand in that room, what burden would you finally be willing to lay down? Comment below with your answer. The president's mind, a weapon of debate and persuasion, desperately tries to regain its footing. He mentally rehearses the logic of his power, the hard choices, the necessary evils, the moral calculus of a world held hostage by atomic fire. He attempts to categorize the visitor, to reduce him to a symbol, a psychological projection born of stress and isolation. But the silence in the room is not an absence of sound. It is a presence. It is a stillness that dismantles argument and dissolves reason. His ego, the engine of his ambition, sputters and stalls. It has no words, no strategy, no defense against a truth that does not need to speak to be heard. The very air feels heavy, charged with a reality his intellect cannot conquer. His most profound conviction, the bedrock of his secular gospel, rises to his defense, the call for a generation to pour itself out for the nation. This idea is his monument, the noble creed of his Camelot. Yet the man before him is the living embodiment of a different government, a rival throne. In the sacred quiet of the office, an ancient truth echoes not in the ears, but in the soul. My kingdom is not of this world. If it were, my servants would fight. The call to national sacrifice, once so resonant, now sounds like a distraction. It is a demand for loyalty to a temporary flag, while a king from an eternal country stands waiting, offering a citizenship that death cannot revoke. He is the man who holds the world in his hands, the leader who gambles with the fate of continents to preserve a way of life. He has accepted the burden of gaining the whole world to save it. Every decision, every alliance, every sleepless night is a sacrifice on the altar of global influence and temporal security. But the carpenter's gaze cuts through the geopolitical fog. It poses a silent, devastating question that hangs in the space between them. For what shall it profit a man if he shall gain the whole world and lose his own soul? The question is not an accusation. It is a balance sheet. It is a spiritual audit that reveals the terrifying possibility of winning the entire game, only to forfeit the prize that truly matters. All the polished armor of his identity begins to fall away. The charm, the wit, the powerful oratory, the very tools that built his legend, are now useless trinkets. He is spiritually disarmed, stripped bare before a presence that needs no introduction. His new frontier, that shining vision of human progress, is revealed for what it is, a magnificent blueprint for a house built on sand. He, the architect of a new age, suddenly feels ancient and small, a child playing with maps while the true owner of the territory watches patiently. The power he wielded moments ago now feels like a borrowed costume, and the play is coming to an end. If this truth is starting to unsettle you, share this with someone who needs to hear it. The judgment is not a sentence, it is a revelation. It is the quiet, gut-wrenching understanding that the kingdom he so passionately built is a beautiful, tragic echo of the one he was made for. The silence delivers no verdict on his policies or his politics. It delivers a verdict on his foundation. The Oval Office transforms from a center of power into a crucible of the soul. There is no condemnation in the Nazarene's eyes, only a heartbreaking clarity. The president feels the immense weight of his own efforts, the crushing burden of a man who tried to be a messiah for a world that was never his to save. The silence has spoken, and its judgment is absolute. The silent visitor becomes a mirror, not a mirror of glass that reflects a tired face and a tailored suit, but a spiritual one that bypasses the flesh and shows the soul. In this reflection, Kennedy sees not a monster, but a man divided. He sees the visionary who inspired a nation and the politician who mastered the game. He sees the husband and the icon. He sees the man who spoke of courage and the man who harbored deep fears. The image is not condemning, it is simply true. And for a man who has lived by crafting a public narrative, by controlling the image, there is nothing more terrifying than an unedited reflection of his own spirit. He tries to fight back, not with words, but with conviction. In the court of his own mind, he presents his case. The world is not a gentle place, it is a chessboard of nuclear threats and ideological wars. Idealism must be tempered with pragmatism. Certain sacrifices are necessary. He believes this. He believes that his leadership, with all its compromises and its heavy burdens, is what stands between the free world and the abyss. He is not a hypocrite. He is a realist. He is the shepherd who must sometimes act like a wolf to protect the flock. This is the lonely, necessary truth of power, a truth he is certain the silent carpenter before him could never understand. But the mirror of Christ reflects his own words back at him, stripped of their political power and imbued with spiritual weight. He has built a kingdom on the idea that an idea can be immortal, a legacy that outlasts death. Yet, the quiet presence before him is a living testament to a different truth. A whisper echoes in his soul, not from the room but from a deeper place. Woe to you, scribes and Pharisees, hypocrites, for you are like whitewashed tombs, which outwardly appear beautiful, but within are full of dead people's bones and all uncleanness. The charge isn't about malice, it's about the exterior. His Camelot, so beautiful on the outside, is built on the bones of political compromise and personal ambition. The polished image of the new frontier begins to tarnish under this relentless, silent gaze. He remembers not the grand speeches, but the quiet moments of calculation, the times he chose the politically advantageous path over the morally purer one, the moments he used his charm not to inspire but to manipulate. He sees that the torch he so proudly claimed to carry was sometimes used to cast shadows, to hide the parts of his leadership and himself that did not fit the shining myth. The distance between the man on the television screen and the man standing in this room feels like an impassable chasm, a canyon of his own making. The armor of his ideology, once so impenetrable, now feels like it is made of glass. Every justification, every rationalization shatters against the simple, unyielding truth of the presence before him. He is being seen, not as a president, not as an icon, not as a historical figure, but as a soul, naked and exposed. The weight of that gaze is more crushing than the threat of nuclear war, because it is a weight he cannot delegate or strategize against. And you? Would you have the courage to look within if you were standing before Jesus? Comment below. The president's mind, the sharpest weapon in his arsenal, scrambles to erect a final defense. He is not a tyrant, he is a guardian. He stands on the wall of a fragile peace, making the hard choices that idealists are too pure to comprehend. The world is a brutal arena, not a sanctuary, and it demands a leader who understands its darkness. He must negotiate with enemies, make compromises in shadow, and bear the moral cost so that others can sleep under the illusion of safety. This is not hypocrisy, it is leadership. It is the lonely burden of a man who believes he is doing what must be done to hold back the tide, a truth he is certain the serene Galilean could never grasp. But the silent figure offers no debate, only a reflection. The beautiful facade of Camelot, with its shining ideals and noble rhetoric, is held up to an ancient light. A devastating truth echoes in the president's soul, piercing through his justifications. Woe to you, for you are like whitewashed tombs, which look beautiful on the outside, but on the inside are full of the bones of the dead and everything unclean. The charge isn't that his vision is evil, but that its polished exterior conceals the political decay and moral compromises required to sustain it. The shining city on a hill, he now sees, casts a very long, very dark shadow, filled with deals made in secret and truths left unspoken. The carefully constructed narrative of his life begins to unravel. He remembers not the cheering crowds, but the quiet, calculated decisions made behind closed doors. The moments where the path of political expediency was chosen over the harder road of absolute integrity. He recalls using his immense charm not just to inspire, but to disarm and control. The torch he so eloquently spoke of passing to a new generation feels, in this moment, like a prop he used to distract from the machinations happening just off stage. The man who mastered his public image is now forced to watch the raw, uncut footage of his own soul, and he cannot look away. His grandest project, the New Frontier, now seems like a magnificent structure built on a perilous fault line. It was a house built with the best of human intentions, but on ground that was never consecrated. The silent visitor is the embodiment of a different kind of architecture, a kingdom built on an unshakable rock. The spiritual principle lands with the force of a physical blow. The one who hears my words and does not put them into practice is like a man who built a house on the ground without a foundation. The moment the storm came, it collapsed, and its destruction was complete. Kennedy feels the tremor in his own spirit, the cracking of a foundation he mistook for stone. The invisible climax is not a sound, but a surrender. The armor of ideology dissolves. The justifications evaporate. He is no longer John F. Kennedy, President of the United States, leader of the free world. He is just a man, stripped of his titles and his myths, standing naked before the eyes of truth. The weight of that gaze is more terrifying than 1,000 nuclear warheads because it is a judgment on his very essence, not just his actions. There is no negotiation, no debate, no political escape. There is only the unbearable lightness of being completely and utterly seen. And you? Would you have the courage to look within if you were standing before Jesus? Comment below. The encounter leaves a residue in the air, a silence more profound than the one that came before. The president is alone again, but the room is no longer his. The symbols of his authority, the maps, the phone, the seal on the rug, have been stripped of their power. They are just objects, props from a play whose main actor has suddenly forgotten his lines. He tries to summon the man he was 10 minutes ago, the commander, the visionary, the master of the world's most dangerous game. But that man is gone, replaced by someone who has seen his own reflection in an eternal mirror. The crushing weight of the world has been replaced by the more intimate, more terrifying weight of his own soul. His mind, a finely tuned instrument of debate and rationalization, desperately tries to reassert control. He argues with the silence, building a case in the court of his own conscience. This world, he insists, is not a monastery. It is a brutal arena that demands brutal choices. The idealism of the Nazarene is a luxury for those who do not carry the burden of a nation on their backs. The compromises, the shadowed alliances, the moral calculus of the Cold War, these are not sins. They are the necessary tools of a guardian standing on the wall, protecting the innocent from the darkness. He is not a hypocrite. He is a leader. He is doing what must be done, and he is certain history will absolve him. But the spiritual light does not debate. It simply illuminates. His most noble call to action, the creed of his Camelot, "Ask what you can do for your country," is now replayed in his soul with a devastating new context. The silent presence had posed a different question entirely. What does your country do to your soul? The demand for absolute loyalty to a temporal kingdom now feels like a spiritual trap. An ancient, unyielding truth surfaces from the depths of his memory, not as a judgment but as a law of reality. No one can serve two masters. Either you will hate the one and love the other, or you will be devoted to the one and despise the other. He had tried to serve both God and Camelot, and now he feels the tearing of his own spirit. Unbidden, a flood of memories comes, not the grand triumphs, but the small, quiet betrayals of self, the calculated half-truth told to an ally, the charm weaponized to disarm a rival, the moral corner cut for political advantage. Each memory is a crack appearing in the beautiful facade of his new frontier. He sees that the shining image he projected to the world was not a lie, but a carefully curated masterpiece of omission. The distance between the public icon and the private man, once a source of strategic strength, is now revealed as a gaping spiritual wound. The hypocrisy was not just a tool of power, it was a slow, steady poison to the soul. The final consequence is not damnation, but a terrible, piercing clarity. The armor of his ideology is gone, dissolved by a gaze that saw past it. He is left with the raw, undeniable truth of his own condition. a man who built a magnificent kingdom on the fragile ground of human ambition. The silence did not condemn his work, it revealed its foundation. The Oval Office is quiet once more, but it is the quiet of a man who has seen eternity and can no longer be fooled by the illusions of time. And you? Would you have the courage to look within if you were standing before Jesus? Comment below. The president is alone again, but the Oval Office is no longer his. It has become a tomb for the man he used to be. The maps on the wall are no longer strategic charts. They are sketches of a temporary world. The ominous red phone is just a piece of plastic, its power rendered trivial. He tries to summon the commander, the visionary who held the world's fate in his hands just moments ago, but that man has vanished, replaced by someone who has seen his own soul in an eternal mirror. The crushing weight of global responsibility has been replaced by the far heavier, more intimate burden of his own spirit, now laid bare and exposed to a light he cannot extinguish. His mind, a finely tuned instrument of logic and persuasion, scrambles to rebuild its defenses. He argues with the lingering silence, making a case in the court of his own conscience. This world, he insists, is not a monastery. It is a brutal arena that demands brutal choices. The idealism of the Nazarene is a luxury for those who do not carry the weight of a nation on their shoulders. The compromises, the shadowed alliances, the moral calculus of the Cold War. These are not sins. They are the necessary tools of a guardian standing on the wall, protecting the innocent from the darkness. He is not a hypocrite. He is a leader. He is doing what must be done. But the spiritual light does not debate. It simply illuminates. His most noble call to action, the creed of his Camelot, "Ask what you can do for your country," is now replayed in his soul with a devastating new context. The silent presence had posed a different question entirely. What does your country do to your soul? The demand for absolute loyalty to a temporal kingdom now feels like a spiritual trap. An ancient, unyielding truth surfaces from the depths of his being, not as a judgment, but as a law of reality. For what will it profit a man if he gains the whole world and forfeits his soul? He had tried to gain the world to save it, and now he feels the terrifying cost of the transaction. Unbidden, a flood of memories comes, not the grand triumphs, but the small, quiet betrayals of self. The calculated half-truth told to an ally, the charm weaponized to disarm a rival. The moral corner cut for political advantage. Each memory is a crack appearing in the beautiful facade of his new frontier. He sees that the shining image he projected was not a lie, but a carefully curated masterpiece of omission. The distance between the public icon and the private man, once a source of strategic strength, is now revealed as a gaping spiritual wound. And you? Would you have the courage to look within if you were standing before Jesus? Comment below. The final consequence is not damnation, but a terrible, piercing clarity. The armor of his ideology is gone, dissolved by a gaze that saw past it. He is left with the raw, undeniable truth of his own condition. A man who built a magnificent kingdom on the fragile ground of human ambition. The silence did not condemn his work. It revealed its foundation. The Oval Office is quiet once more, but it is the quiet of a man who has seen eternity and can no longer be fooled by the illusions of time. A man can build a kingdom for 1,000 years, but what is a kingdom without its true king? If you are ready to seek that truth, subscribe now and join us for the next encounter.